Well, hello, my friends. Welcome to me, your host, Christian Watson. So, my friends, Apple just recently unveiled a new technology called NeuralMatch. Hope I'm saying that correctly. NeuralMatch, which is purported to be a sort of another weapon in the war against child sexual exploitation on the internet. Indeed, NeuralMatch is a technology, Apple says, that will allow them to scan photographs that are going to be uploaded to iTunes before they're uploaded to iTunes for well-known images of child sexual abuse, as is put into the database of the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children. And also, Apple plans to scan users' devices, according to NPR, for sexually explicit content as a child safety measure, which also has alarmed people who are in sort of the privacy sphere. The CEO of Thorn, Julia Cordua, I hope I'm saying that correctly as well, who and Thorn actually develops technology and tools that tracks child sexual exploitation on the internet. The CEO of Thorn recently defended the new measures by Apple by saying that we have to obtain a balance between privacy and the security of children. I will address that in a moment. But before I make my arguments about this, my friends, allow me to say a few words. Number one, child sexual exploitation is evil, it is grotesque, and it is wrong. And we all have a moral obligation as individuals, as rights-bearing individuals, to protect the rights of children from those who would seek to exploit them. This should also include some matter of government initiative. Now, this is not a government initiative right here, but still, it should include some matter of government initiative. Also, anything that can be done to identify and bind existing, well-known, or suspected child exploiters through due process in the United States, or abroad as well, should also be done, again, within the confines of due process. But this new initiative here is an example of good intentions that are absolutely destroying rights and are absolutely on very, very slick moral quicksand. What do I mean? My friends, any initiative that begins by saying we have to find a balance between something is an initiative that is immediately, by the inclusion of that word in their proposal, morally questionable. What do I mean? My friends, if something is right, it is right. If something is wrong, it is wrong. Balance is oftentimes used in ethics to suggest what Aristotle would suggest, that there's a sort of mean between two extremes, that having too much of something over this side and too much something on this side are actually bad because it leads to imprudent, unwise actions. But if I can identify a moral action that is absolutely right and correct, why in the world would I want to find a balance between a moral action that is wrong? Why would I want to do that? Because all it would do would compromise the moral action or the moral principle. In this instance, the principle is privacy. Privacy, my friends, as a principle, acknowledges the sovereignty of the individual and their property, and the limits to which institutions can peer into the corridors of the individual's sovereign space, their privacy. Now, it follows that if individuals have sovereign possession over their property, which is an extension of who they are, the property being their being, the extension of the principle of self-ownership, then privacy must be a necessary component of that. Any compromise of that principle is a sacrifice which violates that principle. Security, my friends, is an entirely wholly different concept in the sense of online privacy rights. To any extent which security is valid in relationship to privacy, it is valid if it tries to secure privacy. But when security is taken to be its own principle, and that principle overrides privacy, it erodes privacy and therefore violates moral correctness. So, my friends, if privacy is to be balanced with this alien form of security, privacy becomes an alien concept because it is not being maintained in its wholeness. If you sacrifice a little bit of my privacy to get security for someone else or for anything else, my privacy is no longer my privacy. It is privacy that is dictated by an external force, and that is not privacy, my friends. That does not follow from the principle of self-ownership. Therefore, trying to strike a balance in this area is morally dangerous. Is this to mean that balance in every area is morally dangerous? Of course not. Balance actually can be a very good principle to helping us live morally and responsibly, but when there are instances where there are moral principles that we can ascertain are just through reason by an acknowledgement and an investigation of the constitution of our humanity, then balance becomes a moot point. You cannot justify the roving action of looking at people's records, looking at people's messages, regardless of their individual actions, through the lens of security, unless you're willing to violate rights, and unless you're willing to concoct a very different, perhaps improper sense of security, which is not secure privacy, but secures a certain interest. Again, good intentions versus moral principles. The two should work hand in hand, but in this instance, they're not. But also, my friends, we can also acknowledge as a moral principle that the security and sanctity of children is very important, which is why efforts to disrupt child exploitation should be targeted and specific, not general. Apple's technology presumes that most people could be potentially abusing children by virtue of it looking at almost all of the users' information as opposed to looking at particular users who have been suspected of wrong. But general presumption exhausts the energy of efforts that would actually protect children by spreading their range too thin. So, my friends, if we're trying to actually protect children, would it not be propitious to this end to actually identify people who are known or suspected child exploiters, child abusers, and then take the legal tools that we have and direct our energy to tackling them and investigating to see if they're doing anything wrong and then arresting them? Would it not be propitious to that end? But do you not risk spreading yourself too thin and actually missing people who do exploit children by having this blanket measure which covers many, many people who most likely are not exploiting children? Why put all of Apple's users under a general suspicion? Why do that? But we also see that measures like this in the past, which have put people who have not been involved in child exploitative activities under a general suspicion, it has affected them as well. In fact, many of those measures have actually ended up violating the rights of adults who were doing legal things with other adults. So, for example, the Allow States and Victims to Fight Online Sex Trafficking Act and the Stop Enabling Sex Traffickers Act, which were passed in 2018, included a provision to hold online platform owners of all sorts accountable for things that happen on their platform, even if A, they were unaware of the activities, and B, the activity was consensual but eventually became unconsensual through something that happened outside of the platform. So this made several sites, like Craigslist's classified section, go down, and that had the effect of disrupting legal, voluntary, consensual, regardless of what you think of sex work, legal, voluntary, consensual sex work between adults, which also made the sex work a little bit more dangerous for those adults. And it also had the impact of taking down a bunch of porn creators, taking down a bunch of their content on different porn websites, which made OnlyFans, which in my opinion is a great moral catastrophe, more and more popular, all in the name of stopping conduct that was wrong and that is wrong and illegal towards children. So again, when you have these roving general measures to combat exploitation, they do not simply address exploitation, they address anything and everything that could be proximal to what a legislator or a bureaucrat deems as exploitative, and therefore they don't address exploitation at all. Apple's technology addresses any and everything that could be proximal to simply using an iPhone, much less using an iPhone for any particular sexual purpose, and therefore it misses the mark, or it is increasing the potential for its algorithm to miss the mark. So by observation, by empiricism, we can determine that general approaches to these very particular issues render our efforts to address these issues ineffective. But again, the good intentions enshrined into policy make a lot of people feel good because we're taking action to fight something. We're taking action on a particular issue. We're taking action to save children. When in all reality, you're putting up a smoke screen and you're opening up a door that could have many things come through it. And we'll address that argument in a second, because that's the argument everyone else is using. But also, my friends, this is another very, very important argument that needs to be made about this. Very important. When you have this kind of technology, and you rely on this kind of technology to be your sort of savior in this instance, things can go wrong. So this technology kind of reflects the general trend towards artificial intelligence, and the idea that artificial intelligence has the ability to account for what human reason may be able to do so better. So this NeuralMatch is a machine that is going to go through and is going to scan things. And of course, we understand that machines are prone to error, but more than just being prone to error, machines don't have reason, my friends. Machines think in data sets and pre-programmed mechanisms by which they execute certain functions, whereas human reason does not think like that. Human reason operates in a very dynamic way, which allows us to keep up with the ever-adapting and ever-changing world and the circumstances of that ever-changing world that we are faced with. Answer me this, my friends. Why in the world are we going to rely on a machine? We're going to rely on a sort of opposite mechanism other than human reason to detect something that is very complex and that requires a lot of different approaches to detect it, i.e. the abuse of children. Because again, as we mentioned before, the room for error is very, 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 very big. And we understand that if, this machine detects something, if it's like a false positive, they report it to a database, and that could mess someone's life up if they are indeed not doing the particular action. So again, human reason is best relied on to fight abuse, rather than the machine that is pre-programmed, that has a static thinking, and that doesn't have the adaptability of human reason. But once again, we're putting all of our eggs in this basket. Apple is putting all of their eggs in this basket with the presumption that this is going to somehow have a good impact on children. My friends, we have to have targeted, specific actions to secure children. Not general roving mechanisms that rely on a mechanism, i.e. a machine, that does not have human reason, and that also threaten the integrity of the moral principle of individual privacy that flows from our inherent self-ownership, our inherent right to our own property, our beings, to be secure in that. So Apple's new technology is very dangerous. It's very concerning. It's morally dubious. But the best thing for all of us to do is to raise our voices, to assert that we do indeed stand with children, but we also stand with the right of privacy, which cannot be compromised on a whim's notice, because we want to feel good, or because we want our good intentions to have good impacts. Reality, my friends, is resolute, and reality will ultimately decide what has a good impact or not. And the best way we can ensure good impacts is simply by relying on established, justifiable moral principles, and not haphazard measures like this, which most certainly go run athwart of those principles. My friends, think on it. I love you guys so much. If you love me, patreon.com/officialcwatson or PayPal, officialcwatson@gmail.com. I love you guys so much. And if you want to support me, please like, share, and subscribe to my channel. But also, most importantly, my friends, please stay pensive. Bye, guys.